Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co hostess, Anna, and I'm here with.
Hey, Grief Leads and Fright Leans, it's Margaret and Anna. Where are we going today?
Well, we are headed to our final destination in this podcast, and we're pretty excited to talk about it. So, before we get into it, triggers lots and lots of blood, lots of kills, death, fear of dying, weird ways to die. What else?
Yeah, it's if you've watched a Final Destination, listen to any of our other casts on Final Destination, it's a Final Destination movie.
Yeah.
You're gonna have lots of kills, lots of interesting deaths. It's gonna be bloody, deadly, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's it
it's a Final Destination
Yeah, it
movie.
aligns with the series. I still would venture to argue that these movies are all comedies, but I guess it depends on your sense of humor. Um, so, kind of the gist of this one, our main protagonist, I guess, Stephanie, her grandmother has a final destination vision many, many years ago, avoids dying, and all these other people survive. Um, Anyone who kind of quote unquote cheated death dies some bizarre, weird death, and it's in order of who died in her vision. So eventually it becomes her turn. She pieces out. She says that once her bloodline's gone, then the Undertaker um, will die too, because then we find out that I don't want to give it away, which I really appreciated this though. We find out that he's actually connected to the grandmother from her death vision. And I thought that was really clever. I appreciated and enjoyed that. I was like, oh, how cute. This is great. It's a
Yes.
tie in. But yeah, so, they're trying not to die. It's,
Yes,
yeah.
and Final Destination style that
Yeah.
is like basically saying this is where it started and this
Mm-hmm.
is what started all the other Final Destination kills, what got
Mm-hmm.
Death upset. Yes, Tony Todd, Bloodworth. And I think what makes this movie that much more like touching is when you listen to interviewers with the creators of this one who talked to Tony Todd, who
Mm-hmm.
was dying and as thanatologist, right? We can
Yeah.
appreciate that. And of course, Tony Todd was like, of course I want to be in this movie.
Yeah.
And then you learn that that scene where they are talking to him in the hospital, the creators were like, speak from your heart. So
Mm-hmm.
his lines as he is leaving the group of people trying to figure out what's going on, that just hit that much harder. Like I almost cried in the theater. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is like a dying man's like last words to his fans, to
Mm-hmm.
people, and right. He's like, you never know when you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Enjoy life, and feels like the Final Destination movies. That is their whole point. You don't know,
Exactly. But
so live life.
yeah, but you're gonna die. Like we all die, and that's okay. And you're right. Like his line, actually, I thought it was very endearing. The person that went to see the movie with me, they're not like a huge horror nut like me, but that scene actually really touched them and affected them. They were like very like, oh, and and like I knew that Tony was sick during filming, but actually seeing him and the amount of weight he had lost, um, I didn't realize how sick he was, right? And so, how often do we know someone who is ill? And until we see them and maybe interact with them, we don't have a true idea of what this looks like, right? Um, so that happens a lot in our everyday reality, and celebrities, people that we're familiar with, people that we might look up to, those sorts of things. And yeah, I think that that was probably the most real part of the entire movie, was his message that he had sent. And I mean, what an amazing thing to be able to do that and have that live on forever, and that message to reach so many people.
Let's talk about legacy building, which is important as us as the living. And what
Mhm.
legacy are we leaving behind for our loved ones, for our fans, for depending on where we are
Yeah.
in life? And right there,
Yeah.
part like I feel like it's a beautiful way for him to leave
Yeah.
a legacy for his family, for his fans, and even if a lot of us are everyday people, we're not actors, we don't have fandoms. What legacy are you leaving? What are you leaving for your loved ones? I'm reading this book about the
Mhm.
death industry in Japan, and it actually talks about how some people they write in notebooks. Like, so
Mhm.
they leave notes. So after they're dead, their family member can have these notebooks, even
Yeah.
if they have a terminal illness. And right, sharing this with viewers, listeners, like, what will you
Mhm.
do? There's a TED talk where a guy wrote his 50 facts about himself,
Mhm.
and then each year on his birthday he adds to it so that his family can be like, oh, maybe they're like, I knew this fact. Oh, I did not know this. So I feel like this one really did touch on
Mhm.
legacy. We could even look at grandma's legacy, and she
Right.
didn't do a good job of leaving a legacy
No.
because she abandoned her children,
Mhm.
abandoned her grandchildren, and everybody thought
Um,
that she was mentally unstable in the end.
yeah. I mean, her legacy was death is coming, right? But we all kind of
Mm-hmm.
know that. And I do have to say, not that I'm like comparing, because it's definitely apples and oranges, but my grandma did something really, really cool. For those of you who are new, I was a caregiver for my grandma towards the end of her life. She and I were we were extremely close. She was pretty much my best friend. So, when she died, it was very jarring because I never knew life without her. But you know how, like, if someone sends you a card, you might keep it?
Mm-hmm.
So, I kept a lot of the cards that she had given me over the years, but she had actually bundled together a bunch of cards that I had given her and left them for me. And, like, reading the things that I had written her over the years had such a different meaning than going through what she had written me over the years. And I actually, I have one that I carry around in my purse every day with me. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing. Like, even at the end, like, we were fortunate because cognitively she did not decline. So she really had like these ideas that I want this person to have this and I want these to be put together. And but I was like, man, that was really cool because to see your relationship with that person and how it evolved and how you both grew, and I was like, man, grandma's cool. Like, she's still cool.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
Yeah, so
Thank you for sharing. And that was part of her legacy, and that you
mhm.
still have that, and the things we do hold on to. I still have emails between me and my mom that I go back through where I'm like, oh, did mom send me this recipe? And then I'm like, oh, look at this interesting conversation we had about the weather or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's, I think too, like, even voicemails. Like, I know for me, I have had a friend that passed. I have a friend that is seriously ill as well, and like, I've kept voicemails from them just because it's like, oh, this is when so and so was alive, or this is when so and so was healthy. Um, and I think that a lot of people do that. Like, I've heard of people also, when a family member passes, they'll like text them on the like regularly until they disconnect the phone or whatever to kind of keep in routine. I know too, um, my family, there's always kind of like an evening call or something where a relative would call another relative at a specific time, and then when one of them is gone, someone else kind of starts doing that instead, and we just keep it going. It's like a really weird phone chain. was actually thinking about that the other day. I watch Jeopardy every night because I'm, you know, a nerd and I'm proud of it. But I have like family members that I text during Jeopardy and we'll be like, oh, I'm at this, I got this, oh, I bet you got that one. And then we try to see like who gets the final answer every night. And I was thinking, oh shit, if something happened to me, like who's gonna text everybody about Jeopardy, you know? But it's just funny. I don't know. Do you have you mentioned the emails. Do you do any of the like voicemail text stuff as well, or have you come across people that do other sorts of things that
I think, like you touched on, like there's these things that we keep,
are... Mm-hmm.
right? That we memorialize. Like, oh, I have this voicemail, I have this text, I have this thing. And I love how you touch on how those can get broken in our absence. These things that we could even take for granted that, right, happen. You and I like text usually every Monday something about the start of the work week.
Yeah.
Every morning, me and my kiddo text, right, something to each other. Or when certain shows are going, I know I have certain friends are like, oh my God, I'm watching the latest episode of da da da. I can't believe da 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 da.
Yeah.
And how do we honor those things, or even take a moment to pause and be like, this is something that grounds me. This is something I appreciate in my everyday life, that is part of our legacy. Because then when we're gone, the person might be watching Jeopardy, like you said, and they're like, wait, what do I do with this now?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's just very, it's a very unique but also common experience. We just respond to it in different ways. And you know, it's important to know that if you're listening and you're going through this or experiencing any of these things, you're not alone. Like, this is something that happens to a lot of us, and eventually you find ways to kind of continue on and still be in touch with the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do have to say, like, aside from the legacy making meaning, I do think Tony, he stole the show with that. The rest of the movie, pure entertainment value. Silly, gets sillier, gets silliest. So,
That penny, that dang penny that.
right?
So this one does not have a song, sadly, because it starts with Ring of Fire. And I was like, fuck yeah, Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, let's go. No, that did not become Death's song. It was that penny.
It was the penny. And I was kind of glad because Ring of Fire, they played at my wedding. So I was like, oh shit. But it's funny because Death is like a bad penny. It just shows up. And the fun,
yes, and when even
yeah, like they're gonna stop minting pennies apparently, like because it costs more to make them. So I was like, in a few years watching this, when pennies aren't even available, you know, is the take on this film going to be totally different? But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's great. It just keeps showing up. Bad penny keeps showing up, just like Death does.
Yes, yeah. That it, like you said, it was entertaining.
Yeah,
and Death really did clean up.
Yeah,
everything.
It was time, and you know, yeah. I mean, end of the day, we all die. It's just part of life. If you're struggling just with that idea, I would invite you or suggest to you to contact your local hospice, contact your local mental health organization, and really talk to people that work in the field, because I think it's going to give you a better understanding of how this is a natural process of life. Visit a funeral home. Funeral directors and morticians are not creepy like they're made to be a lot on TV and movies. Human nature, we all love talking about ourselves, right? So if you visit someone's office and you ask them what they do and advice they would give and what remarks they would have, most people are going to be more than happy to share that with you.
Yeah, start talking about it. Like, we've touched on this cast a lot. We live in this very death
Mhm.
phobic society. Start talking about it. Watch a horror movie, watch a comedy, watch a movie with death, watch a TV show. And oh, I didn't like that. We know Anna, she's gonna be like, that was so unrealistic, or
Mhm.
this is what I would want, or what did you think about that? I know my daughter, we were talking the other day, sadly there was a death in her boyfriend's family, and so we're talking about eulogies, and she was like, oh, the one that Todd says in the first one, and then Tony Todd's words in the last one. I'm like, that's what I want for my eulogy right there. Put those two together. So it's normal. And the more
Mhm.
you talk about, the more normal it becomes. Oh, when I die, I would like this. I want that. And it doesn't get so scary.
Yeah.
And if you're uncomfortable, like Anna's saying, find those people to help normalize it
Mhm.
for you. Answer your questions. There's a lot of great YouTube channels out there where morticians are talking about things, doctors are talking about things, so that you can be like, okay, this is
Yeah.
going to happen. It's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're looking for resources that are, influencers, YouTubers online, Talk Death Daily, that it's great. Also the Good Death, the Order of the Good Death. Caitlin's amazing. There's so many different resources.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much history too. And I think, as Margaret said, I mean, we live in such a sterile society. There are so many beautiful things that come with giving someone a send off, and different cultural aspects and traditions and rituals and all of these things that we really miss out on. And it's a really fascinating way to learn more about other people, other cultures, other ethnicities, other religions, and um, make it more
Getting
of,
more, yeah.
yeah, to make more out of it. It's just,
Yes.
not just something that happens and then everything's over. I mean, there's just so much more to it. And I think, as a thanatologist, right? So I would say one of the biggest things that I thought was a reward to me through our graduate work was having a deeper understanding and appreciation of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think and talk about death all day, every day, you have no choice but to acknowledge it, right? So, like, what are you doing right now? You're still alive, you're still breathing, you're still physically in
Mm-hmm.
this world. And yeah, I really, quick shout out to the thanatology program at Hood College. If you are interested in thanatology, check them out. They are amazing. Um, Totally perspective changing experience. I I would venture to say 99, if not 100% of our graduate colleagues came out of that educational experience in some way, shape, or form a better person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because, yeah, it's an excellent program. I really appreciate how you talk about living life and how you live life while also acknowledging death is here. That's what the Final
Mhm.
Destination movies are all about.
Yeah,
Death is here. You just don't know when it's going to come. So, how do you live life? And how do we, as a Western society, start to integrate that more? You hear when Anna and I talk about foreign films, death is integrated, death rituals are
hmm,
integrated into their horror films. In American society, somebody dies and then there's the funeral. Oftentimes we're missing all the context in between all these things that happen. So how do we start to, even with our media, normalize this?
absolutely. Yes. And if you do have any
Yes.
questions about death, please let us know. Comment below, reach out to us through our different platforms that we are on. We are more than happy to help. If there's some sort of subject matter that you want us to do a short episode about and it's not necessarily in line with film, that's great too. We are here to talk to you about death and life and all of the things in between, and how that applies to the thanatological trajectory. So please let us know. And in the meantime, I do have to ask Margaret, who do you most relate to in the final destination?
Oh my gosh. Ugh. In a way, like grandma, I could be like, no, like this is what's happening, and everybody
Yeah.
being like, oh my gosh, here she goes again talking about her crazy ideas.
Mm-hmm.
We know I'm a Tony Todd fan. We
Well, yeah.
know that I love him in these movies and I love his character. So I'm gonna stick with him. How about you?
I'm gonna say probably the nurse that realizes there's something going awry in the MRI room and walks in and it's just like, what is going on here? Like, oh my gosh. And then it's more of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, how do I get this cleaned up? I think that one. And really, I empathized the most for the aunt in the
Mm-hmm.
movie because here she loses her husband and then all three of her kids. I'm like, this poor woman, she needs a thanatologist. I actually said that. I was like watching it in the theater and I'm like, that woman needs a thanatologist. And um, one other theater goer was like, what's a thanatologist? And I was like, well, I'll tell you. But I was like, wow, like if this were reality, this poor woman would definitely need a thanatologist.
Yeah, grief therapy for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, somebody that specializes
Mm-hmm.
in grief, a thanatologist, or viewers, listeners, if you are bereaved, if you're grieving, you can ask the counselor, the therapist,
Yeah.
what is your experience? What is your education? What makes you qualified? Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of therapists out there will say they specialize in grief.
Yes.
And since I'm in the field, I feel like I have an insider's knowledge. Most of them do not have specialized training, and most of them are not thanatologists. So
Yeah.
when people ask me, I'm like, actually, I did an extra program outside of my graduate degree. So I have
Yeah.
a postgraduate certificate that I specialize in death, dying, and bereavement. So I have this extra thing.
Yes.
That's what makes me qualified to support you in your grief. I know more
Mm-hmm.
than the average therapist. Not knocking average therapists. You get to ask, be empowered. If they're like, oh, I went to graduate school,
Okay.
did you have a class in grief?
Yeah.
Could, to celebrate them again, their graduate program,
Mm-hmm.
those students have to take what, half of the
Mm-hmm.
thanatology coursework.
Yeah.
So they have a little bit more
They do. And
training.
also
Ask.
their trauma program, which is an additional
Mhm.
post grad, um, half of those courses are thanatology courses, right? So the thanatology program and what we've learned, it doesn't just encompass, okay, we're studying death. It talks about what loss and grief and life journeys look like. And it's okay to even ask your therapist, your counselor, are you okay to talk about death? What are your views on death, right? Because they may have a belief that does not align with yours. Maybe it intimidates them. Maybe they don't like change, right? So if I go to someone, let's say they specialize in death, but I'm like, hey, I'm going through these changes. My career is changing, for instance, right? So the death of one old persona, the rebirth of a new, that might not be their wheelhouse. And like, it's okay to ask. Like,
Mhm.
just because I feel like it's a loss of something, they might just see it as a natural progression of life. So these are questions that you are welcome to ask. You should be asking. Your counselor or therapist should encourage you to ask these questions as well.
Mhm. Yes. What is your theoretical orientation? What do you specialize in? If you are LGBTQIA, what is your comfortableness? Are you a member of the queer community? How do you feel about working with the population I belong to? You can ask, what are your political views? Whatever makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
And if the therapist is like, politics doesn't come into it, because that is a way a lot of us were trained,
Yeah.
then maybe that's not the therapist for you. Maybe you want the therapist that is like, no, I'm a social activist on top of being a therapist. You get to find the therapist that is the right fit for you. You
Absolutely.
might try it and have a couple sessions and say, actually, we're not a good fit. And no, some therapists won't answer these questions because we've been clinically trained, a lot of us, not to answer these questions. That, right, we're here to support you. My take is, what do you need to know about me that makes you feel the most comfortable? And I will share what I am most comfortable with. And if I don't feel comfortable, I will tell you, and I will respect how that could impact our relationship.
Absolutely. Right. And I think, too, one thing to remember is if you're going to a therapist or to counseling or in a support group, right? But the support group is a little bit different. But whomever you're speaking to, that is the professional or the leader, this is not a sit and share event. And what I mean by that is Margaret and I, we talk to each other about our experiences and what's going on in life, and we share with each other. But if I were to have met Margaret and she was my counselor for a traumatic event, my position is to come talk about my experience, what I'm going through, what I'm feeling. Her position is to suggest tools that are going to help me work through that, right? So you want to make sure that you go in with that sort of mentality. This is not, you're not going to a counselor to make a new friend. You're going to better yourself. And I think sometimes the more modern take on services and supports give an impression of, oh, let's be friends with everyone. And it is really important to keep in mind that the purpose of this is for you to navigate whatever journey you're on. This is a self-improvement step. This is a support step. This is to get you to where you feel you need and want to be. And I think that that's just something that's very important to keep in mind. Also, from my perspective, I spent a lot of time in the financial and business world. It's easy for me to say, that's my attorney, he works for me. That's not how it works when you're going to see a counselor. Very, very different.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for that. Anything else about Final Destination Bloodlines?
No, I mean, it was great. If you need a good laugh, definitely see it. If you have any questions about death, let us know. We're here to help. And before we go, I do have to remind everybody, drink your brew, hot brew, eat your coffin cookies, howl at the moon, and don't forget,
Like, subscribe, follow, comment.
we'll see you
Thanks for
next time.
watching and listening.
Bye bye.